Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea DeHaan. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I welcome you to our special alumni presentation today. Today, I'm very excited to do something we haven't done in a while. We are hosting today another Young Alums panel, and this is a really exciting opportunity to talk to graduates who left us not so long ago, who are going to tell us about those first few years of navigating that transition from classroom to career. And I'm really excited to have three guests with me today, and I'll be telling you a bit more about them momentarily. Quickly, though, I do want to remind all of you listening that we do want to hear from you. While we might not be able to see you or hear your voices, we would love it if you would share your thoughts with us. So you have several ways to do that throughout today's event. I'd obviously encourage you, especially if you know some of our guests today, to use the chat to give us a shout out or to say hello. You can also use the chat feature to communicate with me directly if you notice any technical issues or have a specific question about the format of the event. But if you do have questions for our guests, we're going to save time and try to get to those as we move through today's talk. So I would encourage you to please use the Q&A feature, which should be located either at the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on how your Zoom is formatted. And finally, if you want to follow up with today's presentation or you want to see what we have lined up for spring, we'll be posting all of that information to our CHaSS Alumni Lunch series page. So please do visit that. We don't have our spring lineup on there yet, but we're working on it, and we are excited to continue these events in spring of 2021, and so glad that you joined us for what will be our last event of the fall semester. So without further ado, I'd like to talk about our three guests today. I'm going to tell you a few things about each of them briefly before turning the time over to them. So in alphabetical order, today we have Tony Ahlstrom. Tony graduated from Utah State University in 2020 with a degree in communication studies. Throughout his time at Utah State, Tony was involved in several USA organizations, as well as the Student Alumni Association and various clubs in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, where he also served as a peer ambassador and advisor. A former community outreach coordinator for Penna Powers, Tony now works for Access Printer Products in Salt Lake City. Alison Gardner is a life coach, owner of her own business, staff assistant at the university, and aspiring author. She grew up in beautiful Cache Valley, the youngest of 4 children, and after graduating from high school, she spent time in Cambodia working with the Vietnamese people. After returning home, she finished her bachelor's in history and minor in political science with lots of Latin thrown in. After graduation, she began working at the Merrill Kazir Library as a full-time staff assistant, assisting students in building online exhibits, a skill she learned in her undergraduate years. And in 2018, she started her own business as a life coach. She's currently in the editing stages of her first book and hopes to submit it for publication this winter. And Miner Thiriot works as a technical writer for Goldman Sachs in their Consumer and Investment Management division. She graduated magna cum laude from Utah State University in December 2018 with her Bachelor of Arts degree in Communication Studies, along with 2 minors in Spanish and Sociology. She will begin her Master of Science program in Communication and Leadership at Purdue University beginning in January 2021. Looking to tackle new obstacles, Megan began her journey at Goldman Sachs with an internship in the investment banking division, where she worked on the chemicals and mining team. When she is not busy writing, you can find Megan playing with her corgi puppy, Rudy, named after the Jazz basketball player Rudy Gobert, and binge watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Parks and Recreation. Thank you to all of you for being here with us today. I so appreciate you taking the time to come back, especially in what is an otherwise not so climactic homecoming week here on campus, where everything is being conducted virtually and new state regulations are preventing us from being together, but we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us on Zoom. And perhaps we'll just continue in alphabetical order. And Tony, I have you on my screen right now, so I will ask you to start us off. I'm going to ask each three of you to just tell us a little bit about what life has looked like, and how you did, transition from whatever it was you aspired to do when you were a CHaSS student to where you are now. So Tony, I'll have you start us off.
Sure thing. So my path after graduation has kind of been all over the place, as this whole year has been for many people. I got a job right as I was graduating at Penna Powers as a community outreach coordinator. So what that entailed was giving presentations in person to large groups of people in schools. So that got shut down real fast. And it was a lot of fun. So I was pretty sad that I lost that opportunity because I got to teach people about driving safely for UDOT was the contract that my position was for, and do all kinds of fun things helping out that way in different events. And I had a blast with it until it got shut down. So that really started the process of, okay, well, what am I going to do? What do I need to do right now? I have these goals and aspirations of where I want to go. What can I do right now to be able to get to those places? So I took an online prep course for the GRE in the summer through the University of Utah, took the GRE in September and did pretty well on that. So really happy about that. And then my goal is, if I get accepted, crossing fingers, to start a master's degree in higher education administration with an emphasis in student affairs next fall at the University of Utah. So that's the game plan right now. And everything was looking up for that until things kind of got shot, right? So obviously a big part of any master's degree in any education is saving up money for it, right? For the opportunity to pay for that education. So I've been trying to find a job after being really excited about my first full-time job. And it was all over the place between, all right, do I deliver pizzas? Do I do this? I don't know what I'm going to do right now. And had an opportunity where I actually took a job at FedEx, just throwing boxes around. And within a couple of weeks was asked to be a team lead over one of their teams at that location. That lasted about a month. And then I found an opportunity through someone that I attend religious services with to work for their small company in Salt Lake. And I took that opportunity to develop skills even further so I can be more prepared for my education plan next year. So been kind of all over the place, but name of the game was what can I do right this second and what can help me get to my goals. So it's been a fun ride and I've really enjoyed the last little while and the next long while that I'll be here at Access.
Thank you so much, Tony. And Allison, we'll have you go next.
First, thank you for having me. I'm actually really glad to be here. I really love Utah State University because I still haven't left. If you noticed in my bio, I started working at the library as an undergraduate student, so as a student worker there in fall 2015, somewhere around there, because I had actually met my future employer in the history department. So as one of my classes, we ended up working with the library to build online exhibits. And that was a skill that I really loved and really enjoyed. And then I ended up going back to those same people who just taught me that program and said, I would really love to do more of this. Are there any opportunities at the library for this? And they said, we actually want to continue this program. And because you already know it, we'd love to hire you on and have you be the student liaison. So I ended up being able to use skills from a class that I had taken and roll that into the library work. And I should say, ever since I was in 5th grade, I knew I was going to be a history professor. I knew that I wanted a PhD. That was like my goal. And then I actually took a master's program my last year in undergraduate. My professor was like, let's just have you road test this and see if you actually want to do graduate school work. And so I took that class and I really loved it. I also realized that that was a lot of reading. And I really, really, really love reading, but I didn't know if that was really what I wanted, because the reality was also that in the field, so in the subsection of the field I wanted to go into, they only had 2 positions a year. And I was like, do I really want to do 6 to 7 years of school for a position that might not open up? And so it was fantastic for me to be able to get to know my professors and have them be able to mentor me in different opportunities that were in the field, being able to kind of give me ideas of what was actually realistic. And so I ended up taking that class, realizing, yes, I still had a passion for it, but I also really loved what I was doing in the library. So after graduation, I kept working there, realizing that as a student worker who was no longer a student, my time was kind of limited. So I started looking for other options and ended up being hired on as a nanny, and loved it in theory, realistic, not so much. So when the library followed up with me about 2 weeks later and said, hey, would you be interested in coming back full time? I said, yes, I'd really be interested. And so I ended up coming back to the library, and I was splitting my time between digital initiatives where I first started and special collections and archives. And I have just recently moved to working full-time in special collections and taking on a business services position where I can manage finances and do different things. And so it's just been so interesting for me to see, as someone who knew I was going to be a history professor, that I'm now doing finances. I didn't see that one coming at all, but it's been, I think for me, the biggest part has just been my reality didn't have to live up to my expectations, and that didn't make it any less real or any less good. And as I've been able to take these non-master program options, it gave me time to enroll in different courses so that I could learn to be a life coach. And they actually invited me back to help teach their program to other people that were learning to be life coaches. And I ended up starting a book in COVID because I realized that life was happening really fast and life wasn't what I expected it to be. And how was I learning to handle that? And so I think if I could like sum up this entire journey, it would just be, it's okay if things don't happen the way that I thought that they were, because there are lots of really awesome things that have happened in the meantime. And there were really awesome things that I could learn taking side routes and going detours versus going the line that I thought that I was really sure that I was going to go. So. And I think that's I better stop there. I could talk for forever. So I'll stop right there.
Well, that is super helpful information, Alison. I think that is important to always remind ourselves that we may be on a plan, and some of you, right, have graduated recently enough to have really thought like this is going to be the way it's going to go, and it's going to follow the line this way. And even if some of you were still on the career path you thought you'd be on, COVID is a perfect example of things do not go the way we think they'll go. Finally, Megan, I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, unlike Alison, I had no idea what I wanted to be growing up. I came into college not knowing what I wanted. I ended up coming home from a religious mission in Peru, and I was like, okay, I want to learn about communication studies. That's for me. So that's where I started. I also, like Tony, needed money to get through school. So I was working at a chiropractic office. I was working at a health center and donating plasma on the side, just doing anything to get by. But my career path has not ended up how I thought it was going to be, similar to what Alison said. I was approached in 2017 by Suzanne Wynn, our advisor who just retired. We'll all miss her, I'm sure. And she invited me to this meeting that was happening on campus with Goldman Sachs. They had come to CHaSS because they were looking for more diverse people to join their community and their workforce. And Goldman Sachs is an investment banking company, so a lot of finance, a lot of business, but they were looking for people who could improve their communication skills and their communication plans. So I was invited to that meeting and I sat down with them. I learned about the investment banking internship. I thought it was interesting. I knew nothing about investment banking or finance, but I was like, you know what? I'm tired of working 3 jobs, so I'm just going to go for it. And I'd never done an internship before. So I was like, well, I think this would be a great opportunity. So there were like 5 interviews. They flew me out to New Jersey for the last interviews. It was a pretty crazy ordeal. At that point, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I was like, it's too late now. I'm going to do it anyways. So I got the internship, and summer 2018, I spent 3 months in Salt Lake on the chemicals and mining team. And after I finished that internship, I went back to school for the fall semester, and I graduated December of 2018. And still, even after that, once I graduated, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. The investment banking internship was a great opportunity, but after my internship, I knew it wasn't something I was interested in. So I was still grateful for the opportunity. But I was still interested in Goldman. So my husband and I ended up moving down to my dad's basement in Utah County because we were very poor after graduation. And so I was like, well, I'm going to pursue Goldman Sachs. I enjoyed my time there, but I want to look at a different division. So I got onto LinkedIn and I researched Goldman Sachs facilities around the Utah County area. And I found Marcus by Goldman Sachs, which is actually the Consumer and Investment Management Division. And there was a position open for the chat content manager. And as some of you may know, Apple recently came out with an Apple Card, their first credit card last year, and Goldman is their financer. And so that position was to help with the Apple Card platform and to come up with the chat responses. So I thought that was really cool to work with Goldman and then to also work with Apple on top of it. So I got that position and I helped create the chat responses for Apple Card that our agents would use to respond to customers who chatted in on their iPhones. And then when the pandemic started, I actually transitioned over to be a technical writer. So I now write procedures for auditing purposes. I create the articles that our frontline agents use when they're talking to customers about their personal loans or about Apple Card. I create those pages that they refer to answer according to compliance and to avoid fraud and things of that sort. So definitely not where I thought I would be. I never saw myself in the finance industry just because I never felt like I understood finance. But here I am after that leap of faith that I took 3 years ago by applying to that internship that I honestly didn't think I would get, but I was encouraged to apply. And so I followed through with it. And it really has impacted my career immensely. I love where I'm at right now. Do I think I'm going to stay here forever? I'm not sure, but we'll see where that goes. And that's kind of just my career path up to this point. I am also like Tony, I'm starting my Master's of Science in Communication Leadership in January at Purdue University. Because of the pandemic, it's online. So that's a really awesome perk. So I don't have to actually move out to Indiana. I can just do it from the comfort of my own home. So that's an exciting adventure for me to go to school and work again. So.
Well, thank you, Megan. And I'm happy for you that you are able to do that degree despite the pandemic, and sad for you that as someone from Utah, you don't get to move to Indiana and miss the mountains. I'm from Ohio to the east of Indiana, and it's not one of our most interesting states geographically speaking. No, still have love for Indiana, and Purdue is great. Actually, it's a great institution, so congratulations. I want to transition to talking about a few questions in particular, but again, I want this to be a conversation. So do feel free to add to this or to build on the questions that I have for the three of you. But, Megan just mentioned, talking about being surprised about getting into banking when this wasn't something she felt like she was particularly drawn to or even understood particularly well. To the three of you, what has surprised you the most since graduating and entering, the so-called real world? And I don't know if there's anyone in particular who'd like to start with that, but just think about, and I know for some of you, this is more recent than for others, but what are the surprises or things that you didn't anticipate as an undergraduate that you had to come to the reality of when you graduated?
I'll go first. I think for me, and especially, I feel like this is common across all of Utah with the influx of people that are coming here and the rise of all these tech companies that are being built all over the state. I was surprised. I knew that there were a lot of people who were seeking jobs, but I didn't realize that the job competition was so intense sometimes and so sought after. Obviously, everyone wants a job, especially during the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, my husband, for example, we lived by Silicon Slopes by Thanksgiving Point, where all these tech companies are being built. And he applied for this position at, it was like Weave or Pattern. It was this new tech company. And within 13 hours of the job being posted, there was over 300 applicants. And we sat down and we were just like, how do you differentiate yourself among 300 applicants on paper? How do you show that you're the best person for that job, that you are qualified, or at least more qualified than the other 299 applicants? How do you do that? That was kind of hard. And we focused on our resumes to really show that on paper, at least until we could get into an interview and meet someone in person where hopefully we could snag the job. we had to update our resumes and make them professional. So that was something that surprised me, was that I'd always heard like sometimes it's hard. It's really hard getting jobs after you graduate, and sometimes you get a job that's not exactly what you wanted. But we've had to take those jobs because it was better than nothing. But also we've had to reevaluate our resumes and our experiences to make ourselves stand out among others so that we could get eventually that job that we want. So that was surprising to me.
Just want to kind of build off that too, because there's a really common thought process that as soon as you graduate, that's what it's going to be like all the time. And I think in tech companies and in places probably like engineering and med school, that's definitely the case. But what I've been most surprised by, I think, is the amount of available options that I didn't even consider, because my site was like this. I am going this way. This is where I want to go. And nowhere outside of that's going to make sense. And thanks, I don't want to say thanks to the pandemic, because I'm not very grateful for it as a whole, but as a result of the pandemic, we shall say, my eyes had to kind of look in different directions and had to be all over the place thinking, where am I going to go? Because I can't go this direction anymore. And I took, just kind of as a metaphor example, I took a walk down one of the main streets by my house, and I just looked at all the different places that said, now hiring, now hiring, now hiring, now hiring, job available. And there are, I think, 16 different places just on that street alone. And I thought to myself, there are actually a ton of opportunities out there. It's just, as a college graduate, there's a lot of, I don't want to say a pride, but kind of an idea of, oh, I don't want to work there because I have a degree, right? Or something along those lines. But those are some of the best starting opportunities, because let's say you're into like graphic design or something like that. If there's a job available at the local laundromat, or if there's a job at like Del Taco or something, right? You can start there and then say, hey, by the way, I have a degree in graphic design. Let me shoot me some of my stuff your way, right? Work through the manager that way, and then say, oh, wow, this is really good. Have them send it up. And then before you know it, you have an opportunity to go that way where maybe not would have been available had you just been looking for that at the beginning, right? So there's a lot of opportunity out there if you open your mind a little bit and think outside of the box, if that makes sense. I want to go into higher education, right? I want to work in a college setting. That's my ultimate goal. Right now, I work at a printer company. How do those two make sense at all? Well, it's actually really cool. This is a very local, small printer company, right? So my job is to go connect with people, find what their needs are, fill those needs. Aside from, I'm probably going to use a printer in college. That's very specific, but there's all kinds of different connections that I'm helping with, writing different documents, helping administer everything, right? So when they're asking, what administration experience do you have? Oh, well, I was at this printer company in charge of writing marketing documents, connecting with our customers, students, if you will, right? And you can relate those two experiences really well if you open your eyes a little bit and see how they connect.
I'm actually going to build off that. I think the thing that surprised me the most is, so I took the long way around in my degree. So I started in 2009 and did not graduate until 2016. And I tried a couple different things. Like, I knew I was going to be a history professor, but then I also thought of maybe going medical school route too. And so different things shifted as I went. And then as in my final years of school, there was a lot of focus on like, learn your trade, learn your craft. And so you do get very much like, okay, this is my trade, this is my craft, this is what I'm good at. But I had one professor who said, okay, so then how do these skills actually go into the real world? And we spent a lot of time talking about critical thinking skills, being able to communicate in the written word and by word of mouth, and how to present yourself. And those things taught me that, yes, I wanted to be a history professor, but it also taught me that I could write for a technical writing company if I could communicate well and know how to form my thoughts. They taught me how to, if I can be able to communicate this idea succinctly and clearly, anybody wants to hire me. And so that kind of helped me understand that, yes, this was the field that I wanted, but me being able to train students is also a very needed skill set. Me being able to look at a budget and figure out where we're off is a very needed skill set. And that attention to detail that I learned was transportable. And so I think my biggest surprises was just learning how transportable it could be and being able to talk about my experience instead of my job. So it's like, what are my skills? How do I explain how I use those skills and how I can learn more skills instead of just saying, I write lots of paper. Like I write papers often. So that was good for me to realize that just being able to talk about how I do what I do instead of just, this is what I do.
And Alison, that dovetails perfectly with our next question. And our next question overlaps with the question we've received from the audience, so I'm going to combine them somewhat. My next question was to sort of ask what skills from college and from CHaSS have benefited the three of you the most thus far. But also looking back, are there classes or areas or things you wish you'd picked up along the way, or if you had to do it over again, you would encourage an undergraduate who's now still finishing up to add this class or add this skill or add this certificate or think about this as a minor? Are there things that you might have added along the way?
I'll actually answer that question because I'm on a roll. I think for me, and it might have just been like the environment that I myself grew up in, but the house that I grew up in was very much just focused on like GPA, like just get a good GPA, maintain a good GPA. And so that was a lot of my focus until the final years of my undergraduate, when I also realized there's just a lot of people that I can talk to. Like there's just a lot of people that I can, and like not even network with for the intent of getting a job, but just network with to learn about the world around me. Because for my whole life, and up to that point, up to graduation, my whole life had been spent in school. I didn't really take time off. I didn't really take a lot of time doing anything else. And so my focus was get good grades so that then you can graduate, so that then you get a job. But then I realized I don't actually know what my job options are. I don't actually know what things are needed for the jobs that I want. And so I just started talking to professors. I just started talking about like, what skills do you value in your colleagues? What skill set do you wish that you had more of? How would you like to be more well-rounded? And as I had those conversations, I started taking classes in philosophy. I started taking science classes. I started taking these things outside of my major because I realized that me being a well-rounded human being was probably more important than my GPA. GPAs are good, not going to say that they're not, but being able to communicate with people, I wish that I had developed it sooner. I wish that I had talked to people sooner to find out about internships, to find out about what opportunities were on campus so that I could just go out and meet people more. And so that for me, I think would have helped me in my graduation, because even so many years after graduating, I still find myself going, there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm not quite sure how to find out. So I just need to talk to people so that I can find out.
Mine kind of goes right. Oh, sorry, Tony. Mine kind of goes right off of what Alison said. I also took a couple classes outside of my degree. I took an accounting class and I was terrible at it. I was not good whatsoever, but I pushed through. I actually did pass fail, so it wouldn't affect my GPA. But it was a great experience for me because I never felt like I was very good at math or accounting or anything finance, and I'm in finance, but it helped me feel like I was more well-rounded. So I definitely would encourage that as well. And I wish I had taken more classes that were outside of just communication studies required classes or CHaSS required classes. So that's definitely something I would do. Something that I feel like has followed me throughout my career that I learned from my communication studies classes is, and Alison touched on this too, the ability to communicate. You can, any job, you might work Excel or Word or Outlook, or you might be writing reports, but every job involves communication of some sort. You have to develop the ability to communicate with people, to resolve conflict, to succeed in a project requires more than one person, right? And everyone's diverse in thought and opinion. And I feel like learning how to listen to understand a person rather than just to hear them or just to say you listened, and also learning emotional intelligence of how to identify and manage your emotions, but also be able to identify and see the emotions of others and listen to understand them will help you be successful in doing those projects and overcoming stresses in the workplace or misunderstandings. And that goes outside of the workplace as well, you know, with your family. So I feel like that is something that I've taken from CHaSS, is learning to listen to understand and being emotionally aware of yourself and others.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And just kind of touching on being the well-rounded and different experiences things. I think there was someone in the Q&A that talked about the balance of a hard skill and communication skills as well. That is a super powerful combination. If you have that opportunity to, I would highly recommend going and taking something in accounting, or one of the classes I enjoyed the most of college was an MIS class, where it was Excel, Microsoft Word, HTML, basic programming, things like that. It was a blast. I had no intention of doing anything with it, but I use Excel on the daily in almost everything that I do. So being able to use that effectively, efficiently, and everything else, highly recommend. So yeah, I would definitely recommend get a class that people call a hard skill, because I'm of the opinion that the hard skill, soft skill thing that's a binary that we don't need. But I would agree that that's a really good idea to go take classes and things that you need to that way. As far as like CHaSS skills that help me the most, interpersonal communication, first and foremost, no question. When I was communicating myself in an interview all throughout this summer after trying to get a job after losing my job, I thought to myself day in and day out how grateful I am that I practiced interviewing. And my major in these classes that I took, I was able to communicate clearly, succinctly, and efficiently, right? So grateful for all of those things. Not only that, this position that I'm in was listed as a delivery driver position. But when I sat down and interviewed with the person that I'm working for now, he said, look, that's what it says on the base level, but these are my expectations. I want somebody who's going to be able to create and maintain relationships with clients. Someone who's going to remember people's names and remember things about them and just create meaningful relationships with people. Someone who can handle themselves in a conversation with other people. And I went, sweet, I can do that. No problem. Like, I took those kind of classes. So first, I would highly recommend that to everybody. Interpersonal communication, intercultural communication, learning how to talk to different people, learning how to listen and understand where different people are coming from. That is super important everywhere, and I would highly recommend that. A couple other things that I've taken from CHaSS, I would really not like telling anybody where to stand, or don't really care where you stand on anything, but a political science or in some sort of government class that way is super powerful, and having an idea of what's going on, because whether you know it or not, you are being affected by what's going on around you in the political and government sphere. So it's a really good idea to know what's going on and to have an idea and understand of how it works, which has been really beneficial in different ways for me to have an idea of how different things impact where I'm at now versus where I was in a larger company, different things like that. So that I would highly recommend as well, because that's been really helpful for me making decisions. Persuasion was a really powerful class for me, where I had the opportunity to learn how to not only communicate those ideas, but convince other people that they are good ideas, right? I have to persuade people that I'm a good candidate for the job. My resume could be gorgeous and could be glowing, but if I get in that interview and I'm not good at letting that person know that, yeah, you are making the right choice and giving them even more confirmation behind that decision, might not get the job. So being able to persuade in those kind of ways is awesome. And something else that I do right now is I work for my uncle. He owns like a mattress company in Murray, and I post ads and kind of manage his social media marketing presence. And so I have to be able to communicate with thousands of random people all the time that this is the place that you should go, this is why, while also communicating that we're personal, kind, caring people, right, at the same time. So that was a huge skill that I really appreciated. And then overarching ones that I find in almost all CHaSS classes are the reading, writing, and critical thinking. I cannot stress enough how important those three things are and how powerful they really are when they're done correctly, if that makes sense, or done effectively. There are so many people, I'm not even joking, that I still see type like this, or so many people when they write, like they can't put together a sentence. And it's crazy that that's such a basic skill that a lot of people don't have, you know? And in college, you have not only an opportunity to do it, but to refine it, get feedback on it, improve it, and come out writing better than seriously a large chunk of the country can when you have that opportunity to. So that's what I would say would be the big skills from CHaSS.
Thank you so much. I think all three of you touched on things that, I hear other alumni emphasize as well, how much they appreciate that they took those skills with them, as well as, to the point about GPAs. I think that's another thing that is important to think about. Like, yes, there are a few careers, admittedly, if you're trying to get into medical school or law school, there are times when your GPA really is going to matter. But in the job world, most employers are not asking you what your GPA was. So they want to know whether or not you can do something. And that's an important thing to remember. Before I move on to my next question, I do want to thank our audience who have been giving us questions through the Q&A or through the chat. And again, if you continue to have questions for Megan or Tony or Allison, please continue to ask those. I'd like to know, thinking back, we talked about skills or classes or things that you were grateful for or things that you wish you had perhaps spent more time on. But if you think about students of today, how can they best prepare themselves for what's ahead going beyond the classroom? So can the three of you speak to either the value of internships or clubs or career exploration or other resources that you may have used as an undergrad or that you realize in hindsight you should have used as an undergrad that you might, encourage current students to think about taking part in? Tony, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can definitely start with that. I am so passionate about networking and using the opportunities. It is so underutilized. And I think a big chunk of what you're paying for at a university setting is you have all of these free events to you, free being as a student, or I guess you could come if you weren't, but you have all of these networking opportunities available to you left and right that are happening all over campus. And just a couple jobs that I've had in the past couple months. The first one I got came because of my advisor, because of Suzanne Nguyen sending out emails, right? Because I knew her, she said this would be a good idea to me, and that's how the job came into place. The second one is because I was good friends and had a good relationship with somebody that I knew in my local sphere, right? Lots of the opportunities that get presented to people are because of the relationships they have with other people. And you have a free opportunity to go create relationships with people in the job sphere all the time in college. So if you see a networking night, if you see a come meet this person or listen to this person speak night, take advantage of it, go and write down what they say, their contact information so you can create a relationship with that person from then on. It's a super powerful opportunity. And one of the things I love about Utah State more than almost anything is you can wear this little sign right here, and it doesn't matter if you know them or not. They love you. You know what I mean? They want to do that. They want to connect with you. They want to give you opportunities. You just have to go make it happen. So I would say use that. Huge, 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 huge. Also, I would say, I have this written down on my other computer here, but like figure out what it is that you're learning right now. So what I mean by that, if you're in a history degree, don't just say I have a history degree and I'm learning about dates and figures. What is it that you're actually learning in history? You are learning to look at past events, notice successful patterns, notice unsuccessful patterns, and then implement the successful patterns and then fix the not so successful ones from the past, right? If you learn to market it, I'll say that way in any opportunity you have, an interviewer is going to sit there and go, I want somebody to be able to look at my past, notice the things that were successful and fix the things that weren't. That would be pretty cool. Like learning how to market exactly what you're learning is worth so much more than just the degree in and of itself. So pay attention to those specific things that you're learning and dig deep. What is it that I'm actually paying attention to? Like in a science degree, I'm learning how things are created, right? Or how they're composed or what they're composed of. Cool. I can take anything and break it down, see how it's composed, and I can see what individual components are supposed to be doing what jobs, like a cell, right? And then I can make sure to identify which ones need to be improved or which ones need to be left alone because they're doing great. So I would say that, and then be open, be patient, and have fun wherever you're at. Look for the opportunity to be somewhere where you enjoy, even if it's not the highest paying or the most glorious. Look for somewhere that you're just going to enjoy going to work. Like that has been something that at this particular job has been the deal breaker for everything else. Like I love being here because I get to talk with somebody every day. I get to talk with the customers and see how they're doing. And I just enjoy coming. So it's not hard to go to work, right? And if you don't have that where you're at, that's fine. It doesn't have to be there, and it's not going to be there all the time, I would say. But see if you can find that. Let that be something that you're thinking about. Well, could I find somewhere that I would be happier going to work than actually having fun?
So I will definitely speak to internships. I can definitely say that my internship that personally I didn't feel qualified for is what catapulted my career to where it is now. I mean, someone took a chance on me, but I also took a chance on myself. And when I was first starting to apply for the internship, it was constantly like, Megan, like, you don't know anything about finance. Like, you're interested in it, but do you really have those skills? You know, I was battling myself and I was closing off those opportunities. No one else was doing it. I was doing it to myself. And I finally was just like, one day, I'm just going to apply for it. I'm going to do it. The worst they can say is no. The worst they can say is we went with someone else. And oh, well, I'll just move on. But when I got that first email saying, hey, we want to interview you, I was like, oh my God, I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. But I had to take that step forward, just like Tony said. I had to make that decision. And a lot of times things aren't going to just land in our, you know, in our lap. Like, we have to make that decision to move forward and to make our own lives. And so I would recommend researching every type of opportunity on campus, whether it's paid or unpaid, whether it's an internship or not. It could just be a volunteer activity, but doing those types of events will build your connections that you need to have. Just like Tony said, most jobs nowadays aren't because like you fit everything on the bill. It's because you know someone. And so building that connection and that relationship as well, and staying connected with those people. You never know 5 years down the line who you might run into at the grocery store or who might need a job filled. You never know. So maintaining those relationships, I feel like, is really important. Maybe for people who are a little bit more hesitant to go up to someone at an event and introduce themselves, LinkedIn was really helpful for me. I'd never had it before. I downloaded it, I created my profile, I put my resume up there, and then I was able to research all these different companies, these different positions. I was able to just friend total strangers and say, hey, I see you work as a technical writer. I'm interested in this. Can you, give me a heads up about what you do? And I have tons of people reach out to me too. I have no idea who they are. And we just go back and forth on these conversations. And at the end, we're like, thank you. That was really helpful. So that's another platform that you could utilize to learn more about what's out there. Just like Tony mentioned, there is so much out there that we just don't know about. And so utilize those opportunities, talk with your advisors, talk with your professors, just like Allison mentioned. They will also have positions or know of people that they can connect you with. And then in and of itself, you'll make that connection as well. So that's what I would recommend.
So I'm going to go a little bit of a different route for my thoughts is learn about yourself. You can be in a place in college where it's, okay, what are my professor's expectations? What do I need to do to get this assignment completed well? Who do I need to network for these opportunities? I really wish that I had taken more time to get to know myself. Because I graduated so focused on what it was that I knew what I was going to do. And then I dove into it and went, wow, this does not fit me. This is not, I don't want to spend 9 hours on a 10-day trip. So 9 hours every day of a 10-day trip researching in an archive would be way cool, but I need people. And so just learning about myself and understanding what it is that made me tick and what it is that I valued. I wish that I would have spent more time doing that. And making like real connections with people. Just like, oh, you like this too? That's so cool. Let's talk about it. Let's learn about it. Because the positions that I got were not because of my technical skills. Like, yes, it was really cool that I could do an exhibit and they could utilize that skill set, but it was my attention to detail. It was dependability. It was the soft skills that they just went, ooh, we just kind of like that combo. We can teach you anything else that you need to know, but we need you to have these skill sets so that you can learn what we need you to learn. And that's something that as I talk to other student supervisors, as I talk to other people on campus, that's their big thing is like, do you have the soft skills? And so I really loved Tony's suggestion of like, pay attention to how you talk about what you do and understand what it is that you do. Like learn about yourself, learn about when you're studying this thing, what did you learn? You learned how to stay focused. You learned to be disciplined. You learned to be able to meet a due date early. And so like having that introspection, having that observation to understand what it is you're developing and learning how to talk about it is a very powerful thing to then be able to go and talk with people and to take opportunities.
So I want to build on what many of you have just said, as well as, a question that I have for you and a question that we, received from an audience member. And I think we've started to answer it, but just to see if there's anything else any of you would like to add. Someone asked, that sometimes you can take a chance in applying to an internship, as Megan did, but how do you recommend finding internships when one doesn't come to you? So that I'm going to make that part A of the question. Part B would be, in the case of, let's think beyond internships. So one is first, how do you find an internship? But two, in the case of Megan and Allison, for example, you both used internships or part-time opportunities and were able to transition them into full-time opportunities once you graduated. So maybe, and you've started to touch on some of those skills that were important that made you stand out, but do you have any additional advice for how students who, once they're in an internship, can use that and utilize it to turn that into a full-time job?
So I can start. Sometimes finding internships is really hard. If I were one of you, I would talk with your advisor. They can also give you a lot of good tips or places on the internet to go. I would also go to career services. I went to career services on campus and they helped me rewrite my resume. They can help you find scholarships. They can help you find job openings, internships. They're a great resource to have. And I didn't even know they existed till like my senior year. And I think I missed out on a lot because of that. So I would go to career services for sure. Something to the end of your question, I had a coworker tell me that whether you're in an internship or a job position, make sure people know what you're good at. Just like Alison mentioned, like you don't have to preach it to the world, but if you are a really good writer, make sure that what you come out with is really good, that people know your work, that they see you. Sometimes it can be easier to just blend in the background and not speak up. I've definitely been in that place where I'm too afraid to speak up because I don't believe in my ideas, or I feel like other people are better at the position than I am. But make sure that you are seen, make sure that you are known, and people will help remember you. You don't have to be this super bubbly personality, but if you have a thought or a comment, raise your hand and make sure people hear you. They hear your opinions and they know that you're there. Even though it's hard, I feel like stepping out of your comfort zone is one of the most important things that we should be able to learn in any position, in any situation you may be in. Step out of that comfort zone because that's where you're going to learn and progress the most. So that's kind of what I would recommend doing.
I can build on that too. I think there are 4 big sources that I've seen in internships that I either chose not to or that other people decided to do, just from where I've heard of it. Like Megan said, I think advisors is super powerful. Meet with your advisor, but not only that, meet with the advisors over the programs you would potentially be interested in doing an internship in. So look up the advisors on campus in different programs of if it's music, if it's aviation, if it's foreign languages, see who those people are and go meet with them. Go ask them, even if they're not your advisor, say, hey, I'm interested in an internship in this. What do you know about those? And go talk to them. The second thing I would say would be career services as well. Super underutilized, tons of opportunities there. Megan hit on that perfectly, so I'm not going to spend a time on that. Go to career services, which is bottom of the university in, right? If I remember correctly, go there and talk to those people. Awesome opportunity. Third thing, from my experience being in USA and various college clubs and stuff, there are tons of posters all over all the different buildings of events that are going on, people that have done this, people that are advertising this program, people that are doing this. Kind of like we talked about earlier, open your eyes, pay attention to what's around you, follow the platforms on social media if you use it, go to those organizations that put it on, like the Student Alumni Association, the individual college councils that students are running. Go talk to them and see what events they're planning. Pay attention to what's around you, because there are literally events all the time. Probably not right now because of the pandemic, but I mean, even things like this find their way to make life, right, and to pop up. So pay attention to what's around you. And then the fourth thing is kind of what we hit on with a lot of different things, but your friends and your peers. Ask people, talk to them. What have you done? You know, what are you doing in life right now? Oh, I'm doing this really cool internship. Oh, how did that happen, right? That's interesting. And then not only if you hear it from that source will you have easy access to getting there, you have a really good referral and someone who would more than likely put in a good word for you, which is huge in getting those internships. So that's what I would say. Use career services, use the advisors, pay attention to the events and opportunities around you, and then talk to your friends. See what they've been doing and talk to other people. Use that experience that they've had.
To add on that, I think sometimes we get so in the zone that it's like, okay, people can just tell that I'm good at this, or people can just tell that I care about this, or people can just tell. People aren't paying attention because they're living their life and they're trying to do the best that they can. And so until you open your mouth, people probably aren't going to notice. And so like Tony and Megan already said, just be willing to open your mouth. It doesn't have to be Albert Einstein level anything that comes out, but just saying, hey, this is interesting to me, or hey, I care about this, or what can you do to help me? Like, where could you point me so that I can learn more? Just showing interest is a very powerful first step. And being willing to put yourself out there. And however it is that looks for your interests and who you are, just being willing to be like, I'm over here and I think that's cool, is a really important first step to help people understand and take notice and be like, I do think I have noticed your skill sets. Let's talk. But if you never put yourself out there, if you never say anything, then it's really hard for people to zero in on you and be like, yes, this is who we want, if they don't know that you're interested or if they aren't aware of your skill set.
Excellent advice from all three of you. Thank you so much. I want to go sort of from internships to thinking about something else that helps us in our career, which is graduate school. Now, Megan and Tony are looking at going to graduate school in the coming years. And Alison, you're someone who envisioned graduate school going in one direction and then changing your mind. And as someone, you know, who did a similar thing when I was your age, I'd love to hear from the three of you about, you know, a lot of students, I think, feel pressured to get graduate school lined up before they even graduate. Like they're almost afraid to give themselves that pause, or they're almost afraid of, as some of you have touched on, to go work a job that they don't see as aligned with their end all be all goal. And so they want to have something lined up. Could the three of you speak to, you know, are you happy that you've taken time to work before going to graduate school? Or are you happy, in your case, Alison, that you took time to explore that opportunity fully before actually committing and going into a program? Maybe you could, the three of you could just speak a little bit to how you made those decisions around graduate school, and, you know, advice you might have for someone who also is thinking about graduate school, but maybe not entirely sure what the timeline should look like or how they can make decisions about the program that's right for them.
So as the slightly deviant one in this group, I'll go first. And there's actually 3 things that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that I said today that answer this question really well. So I want to start there. The first one is, a lot of life happens as you figure things out. Never think that your time is wasted, your effort is wasted, your space is wasted if you're not pointed in a firm direction and you're taking time to figure things out. That for me, because I was gonna apply to grad school and then I was gonna do this. And every month that I hadn't made a move to do that, I just was like, oh, this is such a waste. You're wasting your time. Time is precious. And I have job opportunities now. I'm in places I didn't even know existed when I was weighing that in the balance. And so I learned a lot because I gave myself time. The second thing is, it is okay if you do take time to discover and learn. Because unless you've taken a lot of breaks through your education, which I'm totally supportive of. I think that's a wonderful way to discover. But if you haven't, you've spent a lot of time with outside voices telling you what's required, telling you what's needed, telling you the best way to get things done. And so there wasn't a lot of time to just pause and actually ask yourself, what do I want and why do I want it? And that was the question that finally made the difference for me with grad school, is because of my family situation, my life situation, because of some things that had happened, being away from home in the evenings, putting that caseload into doing graduate school wasn't actually going to make me happy. And when I actually reached that decision, I wasn't actually disappointed that I wasn't going to grad school. It was just like, that was an expectation that I hadn't met, and I had to come to terms with that. But by really thinking about what do I want and why do I want it, I made a lot of decisions that made me really happy. And then the final thing that I wanted to bring up is, I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but for me, it could get really stressful when people are like, well, what are you going to do next? Well, what happens next? Well, what do you want to do? What do you and your significant other want to do? Well, what's going to happen? And I had to step back and realize that they weren't trying to put pressure on me. They just wanted to show that they were invested, that they cared, that they were interested. But it's also okay that did put pressure on me, and that I didn't have the answers and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so it is okay to offer yourself grace if you don't have the answers. And it's okay to offer yourself grace if, like, 5 people in your cohort have already been accepted to graduate school and you're going, I'm so done with school, I'm so over it. That's totally fine. Or to offer yourself and others grace if you know exactly where you want to be and it doesn't turn out the way that you thought. So I think that's my overall thing, is just taking the time to ask yourself, what do I want and why is that important to me? And then being able to pause and go, it's okay that it looks different than I thought that it would look.
I can build off that. I'll just be super short. That's the most powerful thing. Know yourself. What do you want? Why are you doing it? My initial thought was I wanted to do a graduate program at Utah State for communication studies. Met with a ton of the professors there, met with a ton of the students who were in the program, got an idea of how much reading and writing they did, and it made me recoil a little bit and went, ooh, I don't know, right? Like, I'm not entirely sure if that's what I like anymore. So I guess get an idea of what the program expectations are and then get an idea of yourself. Following that, I started looking at more programs at different places per their recommendations. Thought about going to the U to do a communication studies master's program. And then meeting with those people, talking with the advisors, talking with the students there, thought that's not quite it either. Moved to another program that looked interesting, which was a joint PhD and master's program in educational leadership and policy and a master's in public administration, which I'm like, okay, that's closer. That sounds really cool. Met with one of the faculty members and they said, might not be the best idea to do a joint PhD master's program right off the bat, because then you'd be overeducated and underexperienced in that field. And then it might be a little hard for you to get where you're going. So that might not be the best idea. And I went, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. So maybe not do that either. And finally landed on the program where I'm pursuing right now, which looks completely like what I want to do, where it's a master's in higher education with an emphasis in student affairs. And the program itself has a ton of emphasis on internships, assistantships, and just hands-on experience. I'm learning how to work at a university from people who work in a university, right? So perfect opportunity for me to get in, get practicing, get working, get experience hands-on and learn as well. So that's where I wanted to end up. So know the expectations of the program, know what you're getting into, like Alison already said, and then know who you are, know what you want. And don't apologize to anybody for that. If I can really touch on that point of when people are asking, what are you going to do? What are you doing right now? Who are you going to end up with? Ignore all of that. Like, it's your life, right? You're in charge. You don't have to answer to anybody for who you are, what you like, or what you want to do. It's all about you in that instance, and stay true to yourself that way.
Building off of that a little bit, I think, and I kind of went through this as well, not everyone has to go to grad school. It's amazing you're in college, that you're getting a bachelor's degree, and you're no better or no worse than someone else who has a PhD or master's degree. You don't have to go to grad school if you don't want to. If you want to, go for it. But make sure you're going for the right reasons. Make sure you're going because you want it for yourself, not because your parents want it, not because your brother and sister went and got their masters, not because your friends are all in some grad school and on the East Coast, whatever. Like, make sure you're doing it for you and because you want to do it and you're invested in it and interested in it as well. Because if you're not, that's a lot of money that you're throwing down the drain if you really aren't committed to it. Of necessity, I had to work before I did my master's program. I ended school with $300 in my bank account, not even enough money to pay for my next month's rent. And so I had to go to work. I typically like to just go to school and get school done with and then just focus on my career for the rest of my life. But that didn't happen because I didn't have the funds to do it. So in that situation, I had to go work and build up money to eventually go to grad school. Some people, it might be the same. Some people, it might not be. But my main recommendation is just make sure that whatever you do from this point on is because you want to do it. And it's because it's a goal of yours, not of someone else's, or not because your professor recommended it for you, but because you truly want to do it, then go for it. And if you don't want to do it, that's just as good.
Excellent. Well, and we're going to have to end it there just because we're out of time. But I just want to say how much I appreciate the three of you being so candid with your experiences today and just giving us great insights for the things that really helped you as an undergrad and continue to help you on your journey beyond Utah State. And I really love these Young Alum events because I learned so much from your experience and just, you know, remembering what it was like to be at that point in my career. And I think it's incredible advice that I wish I had had when I was an undergraduate. And so I just so appreciate the three of you taking time to open up and share your experiences with us. So thank you so much for joining us.
I know that we
yeah,
need to
go
finish,
ahead.
but
Yeah.
I'll try and be in 30 seconds. My one piece of life advice would be, please learn to communicate. Do not keep your mouth shut. I had such a hard time in a workplace for the first time because I just thought, I'll just take whatever comes, I'll just do my work and it'll be fine. Learn to communicate and learn to communicate well. That will make all the difference for you, and learn it now before the stakes get higher. So that's my final thought.
And that is great advice. I see Tony applauding in his cube and Megan giving you finger snaps. So again, thank you to the three of you. Thank you to our audience today for joining us. Again, this concludes our alumni programming for fall of 2020. And I think we're going out on a high note. And I hope that we will have students come back and join us as these three grads encouraged you to do, to come back and join us in spring and continue to network and to learn from our alumni. Our alumni are so rich in the experiences they've had, and they have so much to give to us. So I think this is a great way to get started on learning some things that might be a good fit for you and making some important connections that can help you down the road. So thank you everyone who joined us today. I wish everyone a safe and healthy afternoon, and we'll see you in the spring. Goodbye, everyone.